Hey everybody, welcome back to this video on the diminished scale and how to finally start using it without having to do advanced trigonometry. So this video is inspired by a very common thing that I hear whenever I talk about diminished, which is, do you use whole half or half whole? And I'll answer that question in one sentence, but then we'll get in the weeds a little bit and talk about why I'm giving the answer I'm giving. The answer is yes, you use half whole and whole half, but there's obviously some nuance to this, and that's what I want to talk about today. And I want to give you an exercise that's going to make it abundantly clear that at the end of the day, we shouldn't be thinking about that. But of course, there's like a lot of stuff we need to do in between me saying you shouldn't be thinking about that and you actually not thinking about it and playing super cool stuff with diminished. So before we dive into the actual meat and potatoes and I show you the exercise, I want you to think about something real quick. When you're using a major scale to improvise over something, is the major scale the one that goes whole, half, whole, blah, blah, blah? No, of course you don't. Probably most of you are at the point with a major scale where you don't think about anything. You just use it. It's just something that you're really familiar with, you have a lot of fluency with, and you have a certain level of freedom of expression with the major scale. Now, moving beyond diminished scales, this should kind of be our goal with everything, right? Major scales, melodic minor scales, harmonic minor scales, diminished scales, whole tone scales, and whatever other structures that you're going to use to improvise. The goal is that you've done so much work with them, you've put so much time into becoming familiar with this stuff that you just use it, and your muscle memory and your subconscious and your ears, they take over. Now, I totally understand why with the diminished scale, people so often ask that question. Well, is it whole half, half whole? And part of it is that the diminished scale is just like confusing. Where do I use it? Usually it's not a scale that we've been studying since the first day we touched our instrument. Like on saxophone, I started saxophone in 3rd grade, and guess what? The first thing we ever did was we played a B-flat, concert B-flat major scale. So I understand why it can be confusing and why you ask those questions. My goal here is to move us past that. Okay, so what is the exercise based on? Well, first, we need to just take a diminished scale. And in the simplest terms, the most common definition of a diminished scale is actually whole half. So we're just going to start with that. And let's just base that diminished scale, that whole half scale, off of a C. So it looks and sounds like this. Okay, so now I want to introduce a term to you. Instead of calling this a scale, let's just call it a pitch collection. Because a scale is a great way to introduce something, which is what I just did. Hey, here's this scale. But now the entire goal here is to have complete command of all the pitches in this collection. Because if all we ever do in our improvisation is play the scale up and down, well, obviously that's very limiting, right? So while we are going to be practicing this pitch collection in the form of a scale, I just want to have that term floating around in your head. Pitch collection. And this is a collection of 8 pitches. Okay, so this whole exercise, it relies on working on the modes of this pitch collection. So basically what we're going to do is we're going to play all the notes in order, but we're going to start on each note. And what we're going to do is we're going to associate a really common chord symbol with that starting pitch. And what you're going to notice is that it is all diminished 7th chord symbols and dominant 7 flat 9 chord symbols. So the first step is to actually write it all out and just practice playing this. And I have no problem with actually showing you the notation. I think that's totally fine to start, because what it will do is it'll remove the barrier of entry. Like, you don't have to memorize a bunch of stuff before you actually start playing. And it's going to start to program on a basic level your muscle memory. Okay, so I'm going to play through the exercise for you. And what I want you to notice is that even though the chord symbol and the starting pitch of what I'm playing changes, the notes, they remain 100% the same. The pitch collection is the same every single time, even though you're going to hear 8 different scales. Okay, so hopefully you could follow along with that and see that it was the same collection of pitches every time. If not, just rewind, go watch that part again. But after you can do this exercise, what you want to do is then you want to just use the chord symbols. You want to play the exact same exercise, but now you're not looking at the notation. And this is really, really where we start to associate 8 chord symbols with this particular pitch collection. And we start to really build that muscle memory when we're just looking at the chord symbols. And also we're reinforcing what we can actually use the diminished scale over when we're in the wild and we're improvising. We see one of these chords and oh yeah, I could use diminished over this. You've already got it sort of programmed and you're starting to develop a little bit of fluency. Now, what we are doing right now, because this is a really basic exercise, just meant to get you basic familiarity and basic sort of muscle memory and ear programming with these pitch collections, we are starting on the root of every chord, right? But we got to start somewhere, and this really makes sense to do. There's a million other exercises that we can do once we have this pitch collection really programmed into our playing. I'm just going to play it for you one more time and give you the visual so that it sinks in a little bit more. So when you practice this, you are practicing both whole half and half whole, all of them. So what happens is if you do practice this, you start to ask that question less. You just know the pitch collection that's associated with these various chord symbols, and you start to develop a sixth sense for what notes to play over it. Because here's the thing. If you see a chord while you're improvising, and you have to ask yourself, wait, is this whole half or half whole? By the time you even ask yourself that question, the chord is gone. And do you think you have any hope of playing phrases that make sense if you are tied to that thought? Because what if your phrase is, going in a direction where on the next chord you have to start somewhere else besides the root? Well, then your whole half whole thing goes out the window even further. So again, the message here is really, it's a pitch collection. And if you can program yourself to play the pitch collection and get really, really familiar with that. Start on every note in the pitch collection, up and down. That thought will come into your head a lot less, and you'll be able to just play music, frankly. Using the diminished sound will become more like using a basic major or minor scale, which you never have to ask yourself, what is the interval structure here? Now, I am going to make this PDF that we've been using available to you in the description below. Just put in your information and you'll get the PDF delivered right to your inbox. Now, this PDF is only for one family, and there's 3 families of diminished. So you're going to want to work on this one, and then you're going to want to work on the other 2 families just like it. And if you want to do that a lot faster and be able to get through all this stuff with a lot more context, this whole lesson that I'm putting out here on YouTube is from my new course, No-Nonsense Diminished. So if the diminished sound is something that you know you want in your playing, but you just need help actually getting it to the point where you can create music with it and stop thinking, this course might be for you. So I'll leave a link to that course in the description as well. I actually put this out a number of months ago, but I haven't been making a lot of noise about it because I wanted my initial group of students to get through some of it and work out the kinks and get some feedback. And now that people have been working with this stuff for a little while, I can tell you with 100% certainty that it's really working for people. The course is like upwards of 6 months of kind of daily work if you really want to take this seriously, and it's all for less than the cost of 1 hour of private lessons. So make sure to check that out. That also really supports the channel. It allows me to keep putting out a bunch of free stuff, because if you think YouTube is paying any of the bills, it's not. Anyway, next week's video is going to be the other exercise in the course that really puts this idea that we've covered here on steroids and really does start to test your ability to associate that pitch collection with the chord symbols. So practice this one for a little while, and then you'll be ready for next week's video. If you're not subscribed, now is a great time to do it. Turn on notifications so you don't miss that video. And I hope you found this useful. Looking forward to hearing from you in the comments, and we'll see you on the next one, everybody. Bye.